Hi, everybody. This is the last part of assignment to part one is looking at what can we say about our map regarding land use and elevation or relief is what we're looking at. So if we take a look at our map, and the sort of the best way to start this is by sort of having that really zoomed out look, sort of like look at just what we see in terms of the colors. And so when we're looking at these colors, we see green, we see pink, we see blue, there's some white. And it's your job to sort of just communicate in sort of a few sentences what each of those things mean. And so when I'm looking at this map, I can sort of see some things that sort of stand out. In particular, the pink isn't like evenly spread out. So that means there's so pink must mean something. Cities, right? So we have a few cities across our map. The other thing I'm noticing is that like we've got quite a bit of green in the southeast corner, not as much green, or it's not in that same sort of cover that we see here in the southeast corner compared to the whole western half of the map. And so thinking about what does that green represent, what does the pink represent, and even what does the blue represent? And when we were looking at some examples before, if you zoom into some of these pieces, depending if you've looked at the other videos, if you zoom into some of these sections here, you can see that it's not just green. We've got green with some of these sort of funky symbols on it. And those symbols, we go over to our legend here, represent marsh or swamp, depending on the color combination. And since we're zoomed in here, we've got some other things here. So whether it's straight up green, it maybe means it's a wooded area. There's this pattern, it could be an orchard, vineyard, or hop field, that kind of thing. We also have some examples of what our contour lines might show us, some of those symbols, and again, lake or pond or intermittent pond, those kinds of patterns. So again, coming back out to here, we can start to see some of those patterns represent that we were just talking about right away. So we've got this pattern that we need to figure out. There's sort of this funky kind of cloud pattern. And again, that cloud pattern is usually related to like a rocky ledge in a given place. So again, scrolling through or zooming in on that legend will let you sort of find out some of those details. So again, so here's some of those intermittent ponds in the different areas of the map. So for those 2 or 3 sentences, I'm not looking for you to identify every single one of them, but I want you to talk broadly about some of the things that we see here. For the question about relief, this will require a little bit more zooming in into specific areas, but it's related to land use in some ways. So when we look at what we're seeing here in the sort of the eastern edge of our map, we have these sort of long, sinuous green lines almost coming across our entire map here. It's a little bit over here, but really dominated by this one here. And we zoom into this, we realize this is the Eramosa River. And if we get closer into that Eramosa River down here, we can see that it's actually like relatively flat. The contour lines are spaced apart. We even see some examples of some of that like marshy, swampy kind of land use that we were just looking at. And that sort of really broad valley, sort of poorly drained in some areas, is representing that part of the relief. So relief is changes in elevation. So that's what it looks like on the eastern half of the map. But if we zoom into over here where the Grand River is, when we look at the Grand River, we don't see that really broad valley. In particular, in and around Fergus and Elora, we actually have a really deep, steep-sided valley, and such that it's actually a canyon or a gorge in this area here. It would be really challenging to find the contour lines through here, and given the scale of our map. So again, thinking a little bit about that land use question that we were just looking at, we can also talk a little bit about relief. Sometimes when we ask about relief, we're looking for like, what do we see for mountains? But I think what's dominating this topographic map is the differences in terms of valley bottom. So most of our elevation changes in relief is coming from kind of what we see with respect to rivers. And then there's some hills and all that kind of stuff around as well. But the dramatic, I think, changes in relief are around those river valleys. And the reason why Eramosa River looks different compared to what we see in the Grand River is a little bit to do with sort of the evolution of both those watersheds and the sort of glacial history that we saw through these areas, and in some cases the underlying bedrock and superficial materials. So hopefully that will help you with those last 2 questions for part 2 of assignment, or part 1 of assignment 2. And again, I'm happy to chat about this with anybody else if they have questions for those things, and or post to the discussion board. All right, take care, guys.